All right, welcome everybody. We have a quorum. We've reached the appointed hour. So the meeting is being recorded. Sarah has started that. So I'll read the standard opening statement. This is Northampton Conservation Commission for the 24th of April, 2025. The commission is a group of unpaid volunteers who work to protect the natural environment of Northampton. We're concerned with the 8 interests defined in the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, and our duties also include open space acquisition and management. We operate in a way that's consistent with open meeting law requirements. All meeting dates, times, and agendas are posted in advance, and we invite public comment during our meetings. However, we ask the public to limit their comments to issues that are within our purview. Today's agenda includes a continuation of a notice of intent for completion of 9 solar panel canopies within the riverfront area around 182 Mount Tom Road, and then a request for a determination of applicability to determine if driveway and house construction is subject to the Wetlands Act or the Wetlands Ordinance. This at 17 and 39 Stone Ridge Drive. We also have a memorandum of understanding to consider with New England Mountain Bike Associates as potential partners for the Sawmill Hills Greenway, and any other business not foreseen when the agenda was published. We have no minutes this week. So let me ask first if there's any general public comment not having to do with the case that's in front of us today. If not, we'll move with the first hearing and notice of intent for construction of 9 solar panel canopies within the riverfront of the Mill River, this at 182 Mount Tom Road. Someone here to present on that?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Christian Fallon, Principal Engineer and President, Fallon Corp.
You're not coming through very clearly. We can understand every other word.
Can you hear me now?
Better, yeah.
Good evening. For the record, Christian Fallon, Principal Engineer and President, Fallon Corp. Here tonight representing Parallel Products, who has filed a notice of intent for the subject property. At the last hearing, we took some feedback from the commission, and we also received a letter from Sarah with some additional comments. Since then, we have prepared a response letter. We've sent that to the commission, and we feel.
When did you send that letter? I have not seen the response letter.
I sent that out, Kevin, the day right after I got it. So that was.
Dated April 14th.
Oh,
Yes.
so not recently. I see. Okay.
10 days ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
So hopefully the commission's had a chance to review it. If not, I'll be glad to go through each one of the comments to show how we feel we've addressed the comments. Does the commission have a copy of that, or should
I have a
Would you like
copy
us
in
to
front
share?
of me. I have
Yeah,
a
let me-
copy. I've
I'm
read it.
Trying to switch screens to make sure I have read it, but go ahead if
Scott, do you want to share the screen?
Yeah, I just sent the request so I can share the screen.
Yeah, Scott, you should be all set now. I didn't know who was going to be doing the sharing.
Okay, great. All right, so I assume that you can see the
Yes,
response letter.
correct.
Okay, so just let me know when you want to proceed on to the next page and I'll scroll to the next page.
Yeah, if you want to go just to the first comment, maybe blow the screen up so everybody can see it.
Sure.
So comment one, this was in regards to a filing with MISA, which is National Heritage. We had did this early on, and it was determined that they didn't have any issues with the project. Basically, a no-take determination. Sarah had asked, since we made some plan revisions, if we could, she thought that they would need to take a look at the project and see if anything had changed. We did indeed submit everything to them. Typically, when you revise plans and they are a significant improvement to the environment, National Heritage certainly isn't going to say there's going to be anything different. The changes we have made have all been a significant improvement to the site, not only in regards to stormwater, but in regards to the buffer zone and everything else environmentally. So we feel they are going to be completely fine with this. However, we did submit it, and once we get feedback from them, we'll submit it to the commission as well. The second comment, I'm going to let the wetland scientists talk about this one, but I just want to remind the board, I mean, this is a project that we had originally filed back in 2023. This is talking about flags. I thought we would be beyond this point by now, but I will have Brad let the commission know the process that he went through and how we delineated the bank. Brad, if you want to answer this one, please.
Sure. Thank you, Christian. Good evening, members of the commission. Brad Holmes with Environmental Consulting, Restoration, Professional Wetland Scientist. We delineated the site to locate the limit of the bordering vegetated wetland in the inland bank of the Mill River. There's a question about how the mean annual high water was delineated versus the inland bank. And as you know, with perennial streams, there's only one way to delineate the limit of the perennial stream, and that's the bank. And there's two portions of that when you consider it bank. Is if the stream has a very well-defined first observable break and slope, then you place your flag at that break and slope. But if the stream does not have a bank, then you locate the mean annual high water limit if there isn't a first observable break and slope. I provided the DEP's guidance on that. So we followed the delineation by where there's a steep bank, where the channel of the river is confined within that bank, we hung the flag there. Where there wasn't a bank and there was obviously a flooding limit, we placed the flags at the limit of the flooding. Most of this site, especially the portion of the site nearest work area, has a steep slope. So you don't have much of a mean annual high water. It's a very distinct break and slope. So we've delineated in that manner. So I think we addressed that, but I can certainly answer any questions.
Yes, commissioners, please ask questions as we go, or we can also add questions at the end. Please proceed.
Hey, Scott, if you want to go to the next comment, number 3. So comment number 3 is in regards to compensatory storage that we've proposed. Sarah was asking if we provided, we're not meeting the foot by foot standard for flood storage. And the reason that we can't meet that standard in this case is because we're proposing the equipment for the solar above the flood zone at elevation 123. There's no elevation on the site that's at that elevation. Therefore, we can't compensate at that elevation on site. It's just not possible. All in all, we've provided enough storage, net storage for the site. And the volumes we're talking about here are very, very small. The cuts and fills are very minor. We're talking about, volumes of like one vehicle. So this is very small amounts of space that's being filled. If it was such a big concern, the commission may want to, put a condition where X amount of cars have to be removed off site. That would take away more volume than volume we've been discussing. So I feel like this volume is small, and the reason why we're doing it is a valid reason, because we're keeping the equipment above the flood zone, which in a flooding situation, we wouldn't want the solar equipment to be flooded out. So there's reasons for what we're doing. We're not just looking to fill in a flood zone for no reason. And again, there's no elevation we could do the foot by foot because the elevation doesn't get that high on site. So I believe we addressed this question. Again, we had the similar response back in 2023 that we have today. Comment number 4. Again, I think I'll have Brad answer this one. This is in regards to the Rivers Act and how we feel we're meeting the standards for the project.
Sure. So this site is what the riverfront redevelopment regulations was geared towards, in the sense that we have a degraded site that predates the Rivers Protection Act. It actually predates the Wetlands Protection Act. But for a riverfront redevelopment project to stand, you have to have a junkyard, which we have. You have to have a loss of topsoil, which we do. And then you go through the standards of redevelopment per 310 CMR 10.58, which is the riverfront redevelopment standards. We've gone through those in past filings or past submittals, and we provided some additional information towards that. We could, I don't see that that we don't comply with riverfront redevelopment. We're also taking out the invasives and doing a significant revegetation with native plantings here. And we've gone over that with the commission as well. I could certainly go into more detail, but we provided that data to reinforce our position on this project is in compliance with the riverfront redevelopment standards.
The next comment, comment number 5. This was in regards to the stormwater, and Sarah had a question about there was no soil testing that was done on the site in regards to the stormwater. Stormwater handbook requires that a competent soils professional or a professional engineer, there's steps to follow to design stormwater. The first step is you take a look at the USDA soil mapping to see what soils fall within the site. This is historical data that, in my past experience, is accurate probably 90% of the time. and it's used throughout the engineering industry as a standard for designing stormwater. The next step is to visit the site to see if the mapping is accurate. I myself went to the site, took a look at the area, and believe that it is consistent with the site. Also have looked at test pit data that was done for the septic system that was designed on site, and that soil is consistent with the mapping. Therefore, as the competent soils professional, I feel confident in the stormwater design with the soils that I've called out and designed the system. Therefore, as the competent person, I feel that is good enough, and I don't need to do any additional testing on site. Also, the commission had asked us back in 2023 to file with the town's stormwater bylaw, which we indeed filed everything, and we received approval for our stormwater design. We feel our stormwater design is in full compliance with Mass DEP stormwater regs. Certainly a significant improvement. I don't think it takes an engineer to figure that out. But the improvements that we have proposed is a significant improvement to what currently exists there. Thus also helping us meet other standards, not just the Stormwater Protection Act, but the Wetland Protection Act and Riverfront Act. Therefore, we feel, again, we meet the standards for this comment. The last comment doesn't really require us to respond. I'll be glad to go over any of the other comments if commission has any additional comments. Also, I just wanted to let the commission know that the applicant's attorney is on this meeting. We feel we've been going back and forth quite a bit. I know the project has been delayed, not because of your fault, but there was plan changes, solar changes, design changes that were made. And also we didn't realize we had to go through the stormwater permit, which we did, which took some time. But we wanted to make sure the design was properly designed and meets all the requirements, as there's a lot of resource areas we're dealing with here. But overall, we feel like this project is at a level we feel the board can make a decision and vote on it tonight. We feel you have everything that supports everything we've provided. You can vote to approve the project with special conditions of things you want cleaned up on site. And then that would give us a chance to review the conditions, whether we agree with them or not. Or you could vote to deny the project if you feel you don't have enough information. But that's where we're at tonight. We've provided evidence from an engineering standpoint, from a wetland scientist standpoint, and we've already received approval for the stormwater. So we're hoping that, any additional comments in regards to that. But hopefully, we try to close this hearing out tonight. Thank you.
Michael Minot here. I'm the attorney that Christian just referenced for the applicant, and he jumped in before I could introduce myself. But I believe through all the various comments which have been provided, including the most recent set, which you just went through, that the applicant has provided sufficient information to address all the previously submitted questions and comments to the applicant, and we're requesting that based on that, the commission move forward with making a decision tonight. We appreciate your time and continued review of the project and all this additional information that's been submitted.
Thank you. the commission has not deliberated on this, so I don't know how my colleagues on the commission feel, but during the last hearing, and I did go back and look, and yes, I had seen this letter back when it came in. I just thought you were referring to something more recent. I thought I tried at the last meeting to underscore that we as a commission have to look at the entire site, and that includes the operation of the junkyard, and not just the installation of a canopy over the junkyard. And that it does not, as far as I can tell, the operation of the junkyard is going to continue as it has. There's going to be additional gravel brought in without it being addressed in your plans about how the heavy equipment movement dragging automobiles around might affect that, where the boundaries are going to be to try and prevent movement of that, and a variety of other things. The number since the Wetlands Act was put in place, there's been a number of trailers and other structures put into that place that deal with reducing flood storage. There's no addressing of that. In short, I tried to say at the end of the last hearing that we can't just think of the canopy. We have to think of the whole site. And I encouraged you to work with Sarah to get to a set of plans and a proposal that would address that. And as far as I can tell, the focus that you've maintained is on building the canopy. And to my mind, that's insufficient. I'll now ask for the thoughts and impressions of my colleagues on the commission, but that's how it looks to me. Commissioners?
I'm in agreement with what you just summarized, Kevin.
I have a question about the compensatory flood storage. So just reviewing DEP's guidance, they do make it clear that it is foot for foot at the same elevation as the construction. And I understand there's no land, but the applicant brought up that there are materials on site that would provide for that comp flood storage. I'm just wondering why didn't you propose that in your notice of intent? Why are you asking the commission at this point to devise that? It seems to me the burden is on the applicant to provide that information so that we can make a judgment as to whether it meets DEP standards.
So in regards to the flood storage, we did provide that information to the DEP. We haven't received any additional feedback from them. So either they don't have any questions. DEP doesn't typically respond saying, I approve your project. If they have issues, they typically respond. We don't have any additional issues with that. Again, this is something that we revised to lift the solar equipment above the flood zone. That's the only reason why we can't do the foot by foot storage. Other than that, we do meet every other foot by foot storage that was proposed on site with cuts and fills.
Did you provide a foot for foot table? I mean, I didn't see one.
We do have a foot by foot table on the grading plan. Scott, can you pull that up, please? Maybe zoom in on it.
Okay, that's why I didn't see it. It was stuck in the corner.
Stuck in the top left corner there of that.
Yep.
Again, I mean, we can talk about the volume as much as you guys want. But at the end of the day, these numbers are so small. And considering the significant improvements that we're doing to the site, I would think that this would be the last thing we would be talking about.
I agree that we have to take a look at the entire site, not just the construction of the canopy. And one of my concerns is, having walked the site and seen how unstable the soil is there, how muddy it gets. I don't understand yet. Maybe you could explain this to me, how you're going to prevent oils mixed in with water and snow when you start plowing the area in the winter. How do you prevent it from getting into the river? I know you have swales that you want the water to be directed through, but I think those could be very easily disrupted by payloaders plowing the area and disrupting the soil. It seems very unstable to me.
Again, I'm gonna state on record that the stormwater system designed has been approved by your town and meets DEP requirements. I'm not sure. I haven't seen any documents, but has the commission filed any enforcement orders for any of the work that you're saying was done? Because I don't have any copies of that.
Commission generally would review whether the current conditions meet the current performance standards as applicable from the ordinance and the Wetlands Act, only when something's brought before us, or somebody's looking for permission to do something on the site. The commission wouldn't otherwise normally have occasion to look at this sort of thing.
What I think Mr. Farnland was kind of referring to is that a notice of intent was submitted for the proposed solar canopies. So we're dealing with what the application that's submitted. If the commission wants to pursue something beyond the notice of intent, there's a mechanism for that. And that would be, if the commission feels the site isn't in compliance or there's other issues, there's other ways to handle that, whether it be an enforcement order or requiring a new notice of intent. But I don't think that it would be the commission's practice if a notice of intent was submitted for one activity to roll other activities into a notice of intent that wasn't filed that way, advertised that way, and presented to DEP that way.
I would disagree with that. I think we're obligated as a commission to see whether the entirety of the site complies with the Wetlands Act and the Wetlands Ordinance in the present, as otherwise we don't allow the work to proceed.
I'm not saying I'm just saying the mechanism that we're talking about. I know what your roles are and I agree with you. I'm just saying there's different mechanisms to do what you're talking about.
I again disagree that we would not be in a position to approve this and then try to correct other things in another way. We would say, no, the site does not meet the performance standards, so we would disallow the application. But we haven't heard from everybody on the commission. Mason.
Can we go back to that table with the cut and fill? You said that there's nothing above 116 that you could get comp storage from. Yet you say storage added, so I don't understand that. Where's that coming from? If you have no place on site to get comp storage for anything above 116.
Right. So my name is Scott Daggett, Senior Project Manager for Farland Corp. I am the individual who did the compensatory storage calculations. So what I had to do was, in those areas in which I could not provide compensatory storage, for example, anything above elevation 116, so from 116 to 123, I could not do a foot for foot compensatory storage because those elevations just don't exist on site. So what I had done was I had split up those different volumes and added them into the areas that I could provide. So anything below 116, I took those compensatory storage volumes and more or less spread them out throughout the other areas that I could. So I made those areas a little bit larger than what's required based on the foot by foot comparison from elevation 110 to 115.
Okay, the problem with that is that, that once you get flooding coming in and it goes above 116, basically there's nothing to, you don't have storage anymore. So that's why DEP went the foot by foot thing years ago, because once the hole's filled in with flood water, there's no compensation anymore on the higher elevations.
But
Yeah.
didn't you
So-
provide more volume at the lower elevation? So it evens out in a sense?
That's not
No.
permitted under DP.
Well,
Yeah, 'cause one-
but here's the thing. So I had spoken, I wish I could remember the name of the individual. I'd have to look back in my emails. But I did speak to someone at DEP because I did send out an inquiry regarding how to handle areas above what you physically have on site. And I was instructed that it's acceptable to do that, but ultimately it's up to the local conservation commission to either approve or disapprove of that. The DEP can only give you guidance, but they said ultimately those decisions are up to the local conservation commission. So based on what was suggested from this individual at DEP, that is how I approached this. Just because it's physically impossible to meet that foot by foot requirement, because I had to elevate the batteries and all of the electrical storage above flood zone, which is elevation 123. So as you can see on this example here, I had to create a retaining wall and then fill that area within the retaining wall to get the concrete pads and the electrical equipment above elevation 123. And that in itself created a lot of fill. And then since I could not provide any compensatory storage at any elevation greater than 116, I had taken that extra compensatory storage that I could not provide and just spread it out through the areas that I physically could provide. So to the best extent possible, that's how I approached it.
Can I just ask you, if you look on that same plan a little bit to the north, all right, there are trailers shown, there are two trailers shown at 115. So I guess you didn't consider removal of those trailers or removal of other materials within the site? I mean, because you're saying that there's no soil to be taken away, but it seems like, right, DEP counts structures when they're looking at these calculations.
Correct. And when it came to those structures are not within the proximity of the solar canopies, so we had felt that it wasn't part of the scope of work, because there's only so much that we can work alongside the property owner. Primarily, we're more concerned with the areas around the solar canopies and the proximity to those areas. I mean, we could get into, semantics and say, well, why not, look at what's going on, to the far north of the site and see what we can do there.
Well, that's how the regulations work. I mean, when DEP
We know
talks
how
about
we know how the
storage,
we know how the regulations work. It's more of a little more common sense. If we fill 800 cubic yards and we're removing 800 cubic yards, the net is equal, then there shouldn't be an issue with flood storage. DEP gave us the guidance what to do in this situation, and we did do it. If this went to DEP, if you guys denied us over this flood storage volume and it went to DEP, in the math, we still provide the volume storage. They wouldn't deny it based off that. It's not like we're trying to go above and beyond not meeting flood storage, the overall volume. It just physically doesn't make sense. And again, the reason why we're doing it, guys, it's for a good reason. It's for us to get the utilities above the flood zone.
Just to be clear, the comment regarding, this is verbatim, regarding compliance with the BLSF standards, what about all the trailers and possible permanent structures that aerial photos show being brought on site over time? That was in the DEP file comments. That was not a commission or staff comment.
They
Members
must
of
have
the
had
Commission, I
a
have to
change
leave
of,
for another meeting, so have a good night.
they must have had a change of heart because DEP told me back when I was filing that even if you have to go off site to try to find areas that you can do comp storage, that basically that's what they said. And when they did their foot for foot thing.
And
So
I tried to be quite clear at the end of the last hearing that you had to work with the property owner and the operation of the junkyard in a way that could establish the future conditions for the Conservation Commission to be able to say, yes, all in all, the total site now is being brought into compliance with regulatory requirements.
Right.
You have to work with the owner of the property. You can't just do it while we're building a canopy. I tried to make that clear before.
Okay, so let me ask you guys this. If they have 4 cars stacked on top of each other, and these are structures that they go up and down temporarily, stack them, don't stack them. If we remove 4 cars that are stacked on top of each other versus removing material, in theory, that would be the same thing.
You would have to address the ongoing operation of not just the
Well, I
temporary.
think
Those things
anything
are
in-
moved all the
yeah.
time.
Exactly. And there's cars moved, there's cars brought in, and there's cars brought out. Every time there's a car brought into the site, it's a flood zone. So you're filling in the flood zone. How are you guys addressing that? I think what needs to get done, if it seems like you're more worried about the operation, you guys need to, in order for us to do our job, you guys need to do your job and file an enforcement order so I can bring this back to the owner and say, this needs
As
to
I've
get done
said,
first.
as I've said, when something comes to us, then we can address it. Right now, what's before us is this application.
I know, but we've come to you back in 2023. You guys had 2 years to provide a enforcement order. If that's the route you guys want to go.
Are there any questions, other questions from, or comments from commissioners? We haven't heard from everybody.
This is a somewhat separate topic, but I am struggling a bit to see this as an improvement over existing conditions with the riverfront redevelopment standards because of the, having visited the site, there's just a lot of opportunity for cleaning up and the tires and everything. And I feel I'm just struggling with what's been proposed is really demonstrating enough of an improvement or to count as an improvement of existing conditions, given what we've sort of seen about the history of the operation here and what's being proposed as sort of the limited scope here. I just have concerns about the way this site is going to continue to operate and whether that's really going to be a lasting improvement.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That is part of what I was trying to point out, that unless you address the operation of the junkyard, what we saw of auto parts and tires and petroleum
petrochemicals.
contaminated soils all
Yeah.
being during the snowplow season pushed over the edge into the protected area, the jurisdictional area. Unless things like that get addressed in the plan, we can't say that this is now going to be compliant with requirements.
That was my question.
Other comments or questions from commissioners?
So
I really don't have anything more to add to what's already been said. I support what Kevin and Matthew said.
I'm
Thanks,
just
David.
noting
Downey?
that I'm just noting that the panels at the south end of the site, a good number of them, not only does the support structure as shown on the plan extend over the 50-foot protected zone boundary, but there are also some of the support, some of the pilings or vertical members that are shown inside that 50-foot. So again, under the city bylaw, we have the same sort of standard as we've got under 310, which is we have to see an improvement. And I think one of the things about improvements is that they have to be durable.
Yes.
You know, taking out invasives is a good thing, but anybody who's taken out invasives or seen a project where invasives are taken out knows that that's not necessarily a durable improvement without long-term effort. So there's nothing on this plan that indicates to me that operations are being pushed back in a permanent way. There's no, again, the bioswale is fine, but the bioswale will eventually fill up with debris and material. It will eventually fail. So there's nothing in this plan that shows me that operations are being pushed back. And again, we can't distinguish between this project and the ongoing operations. This is all, you know, this is the degraded site. So when a degraded site is brought to us, we look at the degraded site. It's, you know, again, the division of responsibility here. I understand that the applicant is asking us to go separately against the person who's operating, but that's, I don't get into the argument over control of the site. I just look at it and say, are we getting a durable improvement to this site that's required both under riverfront redevelopment and under our wetlands ordinance? And I'm not really seeing it.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? And then I'll ask if there's any comments from members of the public. But commissioners first, anything else?
Like David, I agree with the points made by you, Kevin, by Downey, and by Beth. I don't see that there's durable improvements in this project.
Thanks, Melissa. Any comments or questions from members of the public? If not, can we leave screen sharing, please? Thank you. Unless the applicant wants to request further continuation with the understanding that they will have to address the issues that we've now for a second time tried to stress, I would look for a motion to close the hearing, but I'll give the applicant that opportunity first.
This is Phil Cavallo from Parallel Products. Christian, I suggest that we have a separate conversation with the landowner, the landlord, and ask for a continuation. I don't really want to go through the denial and then, have to go back to the DEP and go through that route.
Understandable.
We have a good relationship with the landlord. I requested that they attend today. I don't see them in attendance. So I'm going to have to brief them on this hearing and some of the comments that were made.
Yeah, as I also said in the last meeting, I'd love to see solar canopy go up there, but the whole site will have to be brought into compliance, or at least demonstrating the kind of durable improvement that would cause us to say, yep, this is good enough to allow us to permit it.
We-
So
Yeah.
someone want to make a motion to continue? How long do you think you
Well-
probably need to work with the landlord?
I think we're probably gonna need a month.
So motion to continue, when would that appropriate meeting be, Sarah? Not the next one, but the one after that, maybe even the second one after that.
July sometime, right? Or
So-
maybe
No,
June.
Would be,
June.
yeah, June 12th, probably.
June 12th, that'll give you enough time, you think?
And that might be a little short, but we can pencil it
Or
in.
June 26th? Why?
We'll take the June, mid-June date. That's fine.
Someone want to make a motion to continue this case till June 12th at 5:30?
Dude, or June, since you said the 12th would be a little short, June 26th at
Yeah.
5:30.
Okay,
I move that we continue this hearing on June 26th.
is there a second?
Second.
If no further discussion, roll call vote, Sarah, all
Roll
in
call.
favor?
Downey,
Aye.
Melissa,
Yes,
David,
Yes.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
Mason,
Yes,
Paul,
Yes,
and Kevin.
Yes.
Thank
All right, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move to the next case, which is a request for determination of applicability to determine if driveway and house construction is subject to the Wetlands Protection Act or the Wetlands Ordinance. This at 17 and 39 Stone Ridge Drive. Who's here to present on that?
I'm Charles Perry from Sunwood Builders.
Thank you. We've seen the application and the materials. We want to provide a summary or any highlights?
Let me try. We purchased these two lots, understanding that there was a significant wetland there, and we hired Ward Smith to do the delineation. He proceeded with that. We had the Harold Eaton surveyors locate the flags on the property, and then he provided a survey of the property, including a 100-foot buffer. And then we proceeded to put in a silt fence just a few feet beyond the 100-foot buffer. And we are hoping to get up approval for a driveway and a house site on that lot.
Comments, questions from commissioners?
the only question I had was the status of the brook. And Sarah looked it up and found out that it is indeed it's not perennial.
intermittent, yeah.
Yeah, it's always been flowing when I've looked at it, but it doesn't have a watershed that would support it being perennial, although I suppose it could be spring fed, but I don't know. But I did go out on a site visit with Melissa and Sarah, and we had no problems with the delineation. And
Nice.
the 100-foot buffer has been flagged also. And the silt fence is indeed beyond that a couple feet. There were some other issues I think Sarah was probably going to address with tree removal, but
So then, maybe I'm reading the plan wrong. It looks to me like the silt fence on the left side in the driveway is within the 100-foot buffer. Is that not accurate? It's outside it?
Yeah, and Shaw, that was my concern as well. So that, the bulk of the work that's both been done and proposed is outside buffer zones and outside the commission's jurisdiction. Delineation looked spot on, had no concerns with that, but there's overlap within the buffer zone here. So unless that can be pulled back to the 100-foot, or it already has been, then work has taken place within the 100-foot buffer zone that is under the commission's jurisdiction.
So the question is whether that boundary can be moved.
Are you asking me to comment on that, Sarah?
Yeah, so the limit of work, on the closer to the second lot, it is shown within the 100-foot buffer zone, which isn't appropriate and doesn't make sense.
I'm not sure. I know that on site, the 100-foot buffer was flagged by the surveyor in multiple color flags, and he was evident at the site, and the silt fence was placed beyond that line.
But why then does the plan show the proposed silt fence limit of work within the 100-foot buffer zone here?
I
Yeah,
honestly didn't see that, and I'm not aware of that. I know that the silt fence was, again, based upon the flags on site. We could, if we had to, confirm with a surveyor, but certainly that was the intent, and that's what we based the silt fence location on, is flagging on the site that was done by the surveyor.
it could just be the plan, Sarah, that they drew it says proposed limit of work, proposed silt fence, and maybe they haven't got it drawn accurately on the plan. They should just nudge it back beyond the 100-foot buffer zone. But it looked like to me that I could see the flags out there for the buffer zone, and I could see that the silt fence was beyond that. So I don't have a problem. It's maybe the plan has to be changed to show the limit of work just beyond the buffer zone. I mean, I don't know why it's shown that way. If I was drawing it, I certainly would have shown the silt fence beyond the buffer zone.
So Mason, when you were on the site visit, it looked to you like in fact, the limit of work, the silt fence was outside the 100 feet?
Yes, the silt fence was beyond 100 feet. However, there were some sections where there was like a tree taken down, and it actually shows if those are the trees to be removed, those strawberry colored circles there, then there's a few that were actually removed that are within the buffer zone, at least one anyways.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, typically the commission sees the plan before the work occurs. So in this case, we're trying to balance both what's shown on the plan with what's in the field. So I think the commission would need additional verification of whether that it's actually the 100-foot wetland buffer line that's shown, or whether that's something else, and where the silt fence has actually been installed in this location.
May I comment on that?
Sure, please.
I don't think that there were any trees removed beyond the silt fence. I don't think so. As far as I know.
There were.
Yeah, there was at least one. It's that big pine there that shows on your plan.
We saw the stump. It was fresh cut.
And that stump is outside of the silt fence?
No,
Yes.
it's towards the wetlands from the silt fence. So it's within the 100-foot buffer. Or very close to being within the 100-foot buffer. So the 100-foot buffer was there weren't as many flags for the 100-foot buffer as there were for the actual wetland flags. But the silt fence was definitely put in beyond those flags. So the silt fence, as far as I'm concerned, is beyond the 100-foot buffer. But there was at least one big tree stump. The tree was cut, and it was definitely within the buffer zone. But that's the only one I saw. I didn't see more than just that one. Um, But-
Mason, can you think of a remediation for that removal? That would be a removal we would not have allowed had they come to us first.
No, I think they'd come to us before they started. We would have made a comment about, why do you have to take this one down? But there's also a few on site where they've already cleared for the road, and they've cut into the root system so bad that pretty sure that tree isn't going to make it. So that there's some work that, I'm not an arborist, so I don't know if the tree has a fighting chance or not. But there was a lot of exposed roots, and there's 2 or 3 trees. I mean,
Mhm.
it's I think something that could easily be resolved.
Other questions, comments from commissioners?
And just to be clear for others who might be tuning in, the commission's jurisdiction extends only to this green line. So there's been a lot of work that's occurred.
I called you 3 times.
And grading and tree removal, but the vast majority of that is beyond the 100-foot buffer zone and outside the commission's jurisdiction. This will need a stormwater permit from the DPW because the work is over an acre, as well as site plan review by the planning board due to the common driveway.
Has that been approved too?
Has
Out
not
of
been
our
applied
jurisdiction?
for yet.
Oh, okay.
So what do you think? That clearly the most, if it hadn't already been done within the buffer zone, we wouldn't be constrained. We could have said, no, move the limit of work outside the buffer zone, and then it's okay, but they've already taken down a tree within the buffer zone. Mason's confident. I did not do the site visit. I had family requirements that prevented it, but I understand that not what the plan show is not accurate, and at least in Mason's view as a now retired wetlands consultant, that he can say, yep, this was put in, the limit of work was put in correctly. The plan just doesn't reflect it. So that part's okay. But still, either way, there was a significant tree taken down within our jurisdictional area. And if that had come before us initially, we would have had some further discussion and probably either prohibited it or required some kind of replication. So I guess the question is, so what do we do? It clearly, most of the work is not within our jurisdiction, but this has been a little bit. What do you think? I see Downey agonizing over things here.
I don't think that if my neighbor cut down a significant tree on my property, if they did it intentionally as treble damages, as value determined by an arborist, if they did it unintentionally, it's single damages. I don't think that the city of Northampton or we sitting to representing the interests of the residents of Northampton should be in a worse position. Again, we have a situation here where work has proceeded, it sounds like, without any of the permits, right? Without stormwater, without planning, without our taking part. I mean, if we're going to check, negative determination box 4, I don't know, Sarah, can you check a negative determination box 4 and then bring an enforcement action for work that was done? I mean, it seems like you've already checked the negative determination. Or do you bring an enforcement action as if a landowner anywhere in the city went, and they've done it before, went into a resource area and started cutting down trees, we would issue an enforcement order telling them to stop and then getting compensation or restoration. So I don't feel like somebody who's avoided the process should be in a better position because they don't come to us because they've decided to. They come to us because there's a stop work order.
Yeah, and one option here, because additional site work and additional permitting is necessary, would be to get a revised plan that shows what's actually in the field. You know, if the commission were looking at this just as a plan and no work had been done yet, we would say, hey, you know, you need to move your limit of work beyond the 100-foot. And that may have been done, but we don't have a way to verify without some additional information whether the plan is what's been done in the field, or whether the 100-foot buffer zone is actually the limit of work. So the commission could require some additional information about that before making the determination.
That sounds reasonable. How's that sound to the applicant?
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
So, there was, number one, there was no intent to do anything outside of the standard procedures that are followed by us, and along the way, we have proceeded understanding and submitting all the information that we've had with the city. And the cease and desist order was over potentially a shade tree on the edge of the property where the driveway comes in.
It wasn't,
there's
Shaw.
no-
No, that's not correct. The stop work was due to construction of the common driveway without planning board approval.
So we submitted to the city the plan showing exactly what we're doing here, showing the surveyed 100-foot buffer, the trees that were over 20 inches. We have notified the city that we were going to cut the trees outside of the 100-foot buffer, and we had no intention to do anything that was outside of the scope of the code or the regulations of anything. And along the way, after this occurred, I'm not even sure what the cease and desist order was about. But then there was a discussion that we needed to submit an application for a common drive and stormwater, and we've been talking to Doug about doing the stormwater and Carolyn over the common drive. And I just want to let you know that we had no intention of doing outside anything work that was outside of the scope of what was supposed to be done. And I'm still confused about the tree that supposedly was cut outside of that. I did not see that tree, and I don't know that the tree is outside of the silt fence. So I'd have to go back and take a look at it.
I saw it too. Three of us.
Actually, yeah, on
together.
your plan, it shows two outside the silt fence, although one of them, the upper one, is outside the 100-foot buffer, so that's not a concern. The 20-inch pine is shown in the buffer zone on your plan.
Right.
And also, I don't even think you got it's not the purview of this commission, but in order to even put the driveway in, you would have had to have gotten a curb cut permit from the DPW, and I don't believe you've even gotten that. So to say that you didn't do anything that was against anything in the city, there's 2 or 3 different commissions that you're involved with that, as far as I know, you haven't even gotten a permit from. This is the first one. We're seeing it after the job was already started. That's probably why we're a little excited about this.
Can I ask?
Sarah, what about Downey's question about if we indeed check a box that says that we're essentially recognizing what is as the starting conditions, can we also then require restoration given the tree that was improperly removed, etc.?
Yeah, that could be a condition. So the commission
Right,
could
right.
find that that the boundaries are accurate, that would be appropriate. We can't check negative box 4 at this point because we can't show that the work is outside resource areas and buffer zones, because the plan that we've been presented shows that it is not. There is a little bit of work that that is within the buffer zone, but you could check negative, I'm gonna say it wrong, I believe it's box 2, to indicate that the work won't have an impact on resource areas with conditions, and the condition could be
Yeah.
tree
Okay.
removal or whatever the commission finds is appropriate.
Yeah, I could deal with that.
Yeah, I could too.
Question about that though. So I wasn't able to go to the site, but looking at the satellite images, it looks like it's forested mostly towards the wetland within the 100-foot buffer. What kind of opportunities are there for restoration? Is there actually room to plant trees? Is there something that would be valuable?
It's a lot of pine, not a ton of an understory. There could be some opportunities for tree planting there. And tree planting will also be required, or a payment made to the city's tree mitigation fund as part of the site plan review as well.
So what do you think? Shall we do as staff recommendations suggested, requiring the condition that the plan set be resubmitted, and making sure that in fact the limit of work is outside the buffer zone, and what would be the best way? So, staff judgment about whether a restoration is appropriate, and if so, what kind, or they need to come back before? What do you think?
I'm comfortable with authorizing staff to negotiate appropriate mitigation based on, again, because we may want to confirm what damage has been done and confirm again that, just point out to the applicant, because there seems to be a difference of opinion, exactly where the work took place inside that 100-foot. And then at that point, I think Sarah's fully competent to negotiate the appropriate restoration and mitigation. If at that point the applicant doesn't want to agree to it, then they can come back to this commission.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's.
I would agree with that, Downey.
Yeah.
So we don't need to close a hearing because this is an RDA, but are there any comments from members of the public before we act on this case? If not, someone
Can I
want to
just,
make,
can I just ask a question?
certainly.
Because can I just ask a question? I've come to understand that this committee only deals with the area within the wetlands. So who's monitoring the rest of the construction, and what sort of, like, I have some concerns, and who would I talk to about that, or who is, like, for instance, there's a cross-hatched area that was supposed to be not disturbed, and I don't know, I haven't gone in there and actually measured, but it seems like there's an awful lot of destruction in that right along the trail.
Sarah, would the planning board be granting a permit for the shared driveway, and therefore that would be an appropriate place to inquire?
Yeah, the planning board would be a good place to voice those concerns. And just to be clear, the work is currently under a stop work order, so no work should be occurring on site at all.
Right, there was some surveyors up there a few days ago, and I think a new a machine backhoe or something was delivered a couple of days ago. I haven't actually seen any work being done. It's unfortunate because of the stop work that this tremendous amount of debris is just been sitting there, I think, like 3.5 months or so. Is there maybe this is not the right place to ask, but is there a requirement that all the piles of logs and piles of dirt stay within the property lines of these lots? I don't really know if they are or not.
Yeah, I definitely. So no work at all should be occurring on any adjacent properties. That wouldn't be part of this project.
Okay. And I assume there's a requirement to clean up, remove all the debris at some point. I'm sure the homeowners wouldn't want it there, and I assume that's part of the
That,
construction.
that part that is, if it's outside of our jurisdictional area, that's not a Conservation Commission decision.
Yeah.
That would be, I
That's in
think,
our
as you say,
purview.
common sense would say, yeah, you're not going to sell these things if they're not properly cleaned up. But
Okay.
that's not our purview.
Okay. So I can keep an eye on the planning board and see what they're doing. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members of the public? If not, someone want to make a motion to approve? Sarah, I just came from the eye doctor and my eyes are all dilated, so I can't read your comments here.
All right,
but,
so it would be positive box 1. So that's indicating that the areas shown is subject to protection under the Wetlands Protection Act. 2A, that confirms the accuracy of the resource area boundaries. Ward did a great job with the delineation. And -2 at this point to indicate that the work is within resource areas or buffer zones, or at least that small part of it, but won't impact, won't root, dredge, fill, or alter those areas along with the condition that Downey had articulated.
someone want to make a motion to that effect?
Well moved.
Yep.
And a second?
Second.
Lots of seconds. All right, very good. If no further discussion, Sarah, roll call.
Roll call vote. Downey,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
Mason,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
and Kevin.
Yes. All right, thank you. And now we have a memorandum of understanding with New England Mountain Bike Associates for Sawmill Hills. I confess to only reading the first part of the MOU, Sarah, but
And I
Seems-
hope someone from NEMBA is here just to be able to introduce themselves in the group, but if not, that's not fatal. I can give.
Sure. I'm here, Sarah.
Oh, great. Hi, Sam.
well, we're always glad to, the city of Northampton has around a quarter of our total land area reserved in perpetuity, but we, for staff, have a portion of Sarah's time and a portion of one or two other city employees' times to monitor and pay attention, look what kiosks are necessary, any erosion happening, et cetera, et cetera. So we're always glad to have partners to help us with that. And you want to say a little bit about what motivates your group to become one of those partners?
Yeah, I can give a little intro for the organization and our goals here. Yeah, so basically I'm the president of the New England Mountain Bike Association for the sort of the local chapter that represents the Hampshire, Hampton, and Franklin counties. Yeah, basically as an organization, we just kind of go around and advocate for better access and improved trails. See, only doing like multi-use, I guess, representing mountain bikers, but only doing multi-use trail development stuff. Yeah, the goal is just kind of create a more of an organized effort to sort of facilitate the maintenance of the trails there. Sort of improvement from, at times it's been kind of ad hoc, people going out by themselves without really sort of any sort of authority figure or anything like that over organizing official days for that kind of stuff. Yeah, and just kind of, he said, monitoring for any like trails that are eroding, if there's any trails that go through any like going over streams or stuff like that. Yeah, making sure we have proper bridging and stuff like that. We just did like a big boardwalk last year and seeing good improvements already for that area of like the plants coming back there. Yeah, we know there's been in the past, there's been people going out and putting jumps and crazy stuff out there, and that's been taken down, and that's not something that we advocate for the area. Yeah, basically, yeah, the goal is, essentially, as we see it, like there's already plenty of trails out there. We're not looking to add anything new at this point. If anything, we would be net reducing density, just from taking away some of the older trails that aren't vital to the network or unused. Yeah, and just kind of to maintain trails and to do any sort of incremental improvements that we can to keep it safe access for everyone.
Questions, comments from commissioners?
Well, I deeply appreciate this memo of understanding and the commitment that the Mountain Biking Association is making to not to regulate, but to monitor and to at times mitigate or improve the conditions for recreationalists. And the only question I have is that this does, of course, exclude dirt bikers, right?
Yeah, I think the only, and maybe Sarah's knowing more. I think there's like the or I think we call it the Jeep Eater Trail or whatever that. There's that one moto trail that
Yes,
goes through the area.
I
We're
was
not
going to
associated
ask
with
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a separate group.
Okay.
Yeah, so
All right.
motor vehicles are absolutely excluded, and that would definitely include gas powered dirt bikes. One thing that we're starting to see more of is e-bikes, and Sam, maybe you can speak more to this, but I know there's different opinions among users and others about what's appropriate and how powerful, and I think we would look to NEMBA to provide some assistance if and when some additional regulations are ever to be considered.
Yes.
Yeah, we can definitely, that'd be the kind of thing that we would want to do as an addendum for like the MOU for next year or something like that. Yeah, we don't, I guess, organizationally, we don't have a particular stance that like NEMPA says only class 1 or something like that. It's kind of like very much like area by area, kind of making that determination just based on like, we want to officially allow e-bikes, are the trails appropriate for that? Or yeah, that's kind of a discussion that we can
And that's a discussion that's going to have to be had about bike paths as well, that you start to see 30-mile-an-hour e-bikes going down bike paths.
Yeah, it's been changing and evolving as battery and other technology has been advancing, but it's been something that we've, at least with conservation areas, we've been silent on to date.
Sam, are you guys structured as a nonprofit organization?
Yeah, we're a registered nonprofit.
So that means that in order to maintain the trails, you could solicit tax-deductible donations from the public.
Yeah, and we do get is like the most of our funding comes through as like people join to be yearly members, and we get sort of regular.
Okay.
So that's why we pay for stuff like the boardwalk and stuff like that. It's just through member donations.
Okay.
How many members do you have?
In this chapter, we have 200 members.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, probably it's I want to say around the 10,000 across like all of New England.
Nice. All right.
And Sam, what other areas are around Western Mass you have partnerships with? And I know a bunch of them, but just for the commission's benefit.
Yeah, I guess the other ones townwide, we work with Deerfield, West Springfield, out in Charlemont as far as yeah, I guess it's kind of a lot of it, like obviously we work with DCR is the largest landowner that we work with.
How about October Mountain State Park, Sam?
October Mountain is out of our jurisdiction.
Okay, all right.
Can I ask Sam or Sarah about, do we have a good map of existing roads and trails, given that I know in that area, when I walked in it, there's so many existing woods roads and paths that it's not like Fitzgerald Lake where it's pretty much unbroken woods except for a very few. So in terms of managing the resource, sort of knowing where you are is important to know whether you're expanding, contracting, and whether you're maintaining things. I'm just wondering, have you, Sarah, mapped all those with a high precision GPS for us?
We did. We tried a few years ago with with varied success, but I think NEMBA has a much more accurate map than the city does.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're working to kind of create a official, like a city sanctioned map. Like right now, the best resource that we use is like a user generated data that because it's user generated, it's kind of like OpenStreetMaps where we don't have unilateral control over it.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're kind of working through.
I have another question. Are you allowed to have events there, competitions,
I think
fundraising?
it's covered in the MOU that any group of over 10 requires approval.
Okay,
Right.
that
So
sounds
the
right.
MOU as currently structured wouldn't grant permission for like any races or anything like that.
Okay,
But if
that's
NEMBA or if any other group wanted to propose something like that,
Yeah,
that would still
got
need
it.
to come before the commission. But it does create an exemption for NEMBA work days.
nice. Okay, the more the merrier for those.
And Sam, you typically don't have a lot of sanctioned events, correct?
Yeah, usually we end up doing like one sort of big public work day a year.
But you don't have like big races or
No, yeah, we don't, as an
Right.
organization, we don't do any races. Yeah, we have sporadically we've done small group rides, but most of those are covered by other people.
Nice.
Good. Sarah, what action is needed from the commission?
So we would need a vote to approve the MOU.
Is there a motion to approve the MOU?
The MOU?
Made by David.
Yeah,
Is
I
there a
so
second?
move.
And seconded by Paul. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, Sarah?
All right, roll call vote. Downey,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
Mason,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
and Kevin.
Yes.
All right, unanimous.
Thank you. We have a new partner.
All right.
Any other business not foreseen when the agenda was put together? And you know of anything, Sarah?
What have I got? I don't